Hey, we got Julie here. So I want to go ahead and welcome you guys to another wonderful it's not Tuesday, it's Thursday. It was Tuesday when I used to do this. So welcome to the Greater Wasilla Chamber of Commerce. It is wonderful to see all the smiling faces here. Let's go ahead and kick it off with our Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going to ask Benny Cottle to lead us, please. Thank you, Benny. So it's my pleasure to introduce and thank our 2020 benefactors. We have Alaska Railroad, Alaska USA, BP, City of Wasilla, ConocoPhillips, MTA, Matanuska Valley Federal Credit Union, Matsu Resort, Matsu Valley Frontiersman, the Moose 96.3, and Q 99.7. So I am your Greater Wasilla Chamber of Commerce Vice President. And who else do we have here for board members? All right, we got Julie Esty, we got Joy, and we got Stacy. Thank you, guys. So let's go. Do we have any guests here? Awesome. Thank you for joining us. All right. So seeing no more, I'm going to go ahead and move on to our government announcements. Now, we have a lot to go over today, and I know this is very hard for you guys, but I'm going to ask you to please keep it brief. So, kicking it off, we got David Wilson, Senator David Wilson. Oh, sorry, Todd. Todd starts us off.
The governor's office would like to have as much for the Senate candidates to have their forum as possible, so I'm going to not say anything. All right.
So I'm going to do it.
I'm Senator David Wilson. Just quickly, I just want to remind folks about the transportation fair that's happening today from 3 to 7 p.m. It is a virtual fair. Just remember to log on. You can also just call in. They're going to have about 50 different transportation projects to talk about in 5 different categories. So it's really important to go online, talk to the DOT folks, because once dirt starts moving, it's a little late and takes an act of God to change sort of the planning and the process. So if you want to put your input in about design, that's the time to do it. Also, just want to remind folks about the upcoming election. When you go into the ballot booth, since we're talking about elections today, you need to grab 2 ballots. You need to ask if you do early voting or go in person the day of election. You need to grab a borough ballot and you need to grab a state ballot. Also, for those folks that are doing absentees, there was a recent change to the way that the witness signatures have to happen. This only accounts for the state ballots, not the borough ballots. So for borough ballots, talk to your borough folks. There's a borough assemblyman there that can probably explain that process a little bit better than I can. But they no longer require, due to COVID, you no longer need a witness signature, but you still need to sign and date your own absentee ballot. So with that, our office is still open. Give us a call, email us if you have any concerns. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Mayor Cottle.
Okay, our next council meeting is on the 26th, if we pass round 4 of the CARES Act. That'll include energy assistance for MEA and NSTAR. And so that'll be on the 26th. And I hope whoever gets elected, remember it's every day is election day, and don't just come back during election cycle. Maybe come see us more than once a year or twice a year. Anyway, thanks.
Roger, thank you.
3 more years.
All right, and last but not least, we have City Council member Stu Graham.
Hi everybody, Stu Graham, City Council for Wasilla. The mayor did mention a new phase of funding going out for businesses, and there are some other things thrown in there as well, so make sure you apply for that money, because there is a ton of money out there. So if you are eligible for that, make sure that your business applies for that and makes the most of that to help our economy, help stabilize your business, and help stabilize your neighbors. Also, this will be my last appearance before the chamber here as your city councilman. I'm turned out after 6 years on the council. It has been a great honor and a great pleasure to serve you and to serve with you and to listen to you and to serve with Bert Cottle, who has been a great mayor for 6 years. Thank you very much.
All right, and now it is time for our chamber announcements with Jessica.
That's me. All right. We have a super busy fall. You have save the date flyers on your tables. You have a lot of flyers on your tables. The QR code on the save the date will take you to the event calendar on our website. We have lots of member events going on, lots of chamber stuff going on. So go check that out. Add things to your calendar that interest you. Some of the individual flyers have QR codes that will take you directly to the information for those events as well. Our Halloween Town event is just a bit over a week away. It's shaping up to be a huge, awesome event. We have some food trucks joining us this year since we're outside and can accommodate that, which we're all excited about. It's looking like it's going to be a fantastic day weather-wise so far. Let's keep our fingers crossed for no snow. If you or your company are interested in joining us to hand out candy, Sandra and myself know, and we can get you added to the list. The event is the 24th from noon to 4 p.m. at the Menard Center. Again, we are outside this year. Even if you're unable to join us as a vendor, come out, bring the kids, bring the grandkids, or just spread the word so that more people know that it's going on. We're also doing a costume contest again this year, but we're taking it virtual, so anyone can participate regardless of their personal risk tolerances. Entries will be accepted from October 19th to the 24th. And if you are interested in helping judge that, let me know, and I can get you added to the judging panel on that. We're doing Support Local Shirt fundraiser to help us fund our Small Business November campaign. We have flyers on your tables with a QR code that will take you directly to the purchasing page. These shirts will ship directly to you, and we will not have any stock of those at the chamber, so if you want one, you need to purchase from the campaign directly. There are long and short sleeve options in a variety of colors, and it ends in 4 days, so don't delay in getting your shirt ordered. We are again partnering with the City of Wasilla for a Shop Small campaign in November, but in an effort to help our small businesses and encourage safe shopping and social distancing, we're transitioning to Small Business November instead of just Small Business Saturday. We have themed days like Taco Tuesday, Drink Local Day, Espresso Day, and Donut Day. Lots of fun themes in there. And a digital entry system instead of the paper system we used in the past. If you or your company are interested in supporting or being involved, let me know and I can get you the additional details. And I know it's election season and we're adding to that just a bit because we have 3 seats up for election on our chamber board this year. If you're interested, please contact Ms. Julie Esty or Kelsey McLeod for additional information on what it takes and how to apply. And applications for that are due by November 13th. And we are hosting an ornament decorating contest this year as well. You can pick up your wooden blanks at the chamber office, decorate them, paint them, whatever you'd like to do, cover them in glitter, whatever you want. Return them for judging by December 9th. If you want more information, let me know. With that, I believe we're going to hand it over to Miss Julie to start our forum here. If all the candidates can join us up on the stage, I will close this down.
Sorry, so you guys are sitting on the screen. You're going blind.
Oh, I should have waited till you were all seated and then revealed you.
Yeah.
And during the
Hold on, I'll fix it from blinding you.
And during the transition, Joseph Dugal is going to give his interpretive dance of politics in Wasilla.
I don't think we're going to do that.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. As the Wasilla Chamber of Commerce, as part of the board and the Government Affairs Committee, it's really important to us that our members and the business community have all the information that they need to make smart decisions. And for those of you who have been a part of this, you know sometimes we can be a little bit of a raucous crowd. I'm not going to mention any names. I'm just going to look pointedly in the direction of the rockers being sophisticated. But you know who you are. And so today we're going to just make sure that we are very respectful. We're going to limit applause. We're going to let everybody be heard. And any comments that you have can be done with each candidate after the after the forum. So we are happy to have everybody here and are just asking for your respect and consideration of all of the folks that are putting themselves out there to serve this area. So we have candidates for both Senate District D and F, and they've been randomized. Is that a word? It should be, if it's not.
I made it up if it's not.
Okay. By Jessica. And so they're now seated before you. They're not seated randomly.
They're seated wherever they wanted to sit.
Okay. But they will be answering their questions in a random order that they picked, Jessica?
Yes.
So here, I'll come explain. So as the candidates came in, they drew a letter, and that letter is assigned. Each question has its own randomized order, so that just tells us the order. It was A, B, C, D, or F, which order they'll go in. So it's not necessarily A, B, C, D, or F for in each question. They all have different order. So it kind of randomizes so the same person isn't answering first or last every time.
Thank you, Jessica. All right, let's get started. So we're going to start the forum with each of the candidates having the opportunity to have 1 minute to introduce themselves, and then we'll be getting into a set of pre-prepared questions. Every candidate will have the option to answer the same question. And timing will be done by Stacy. And Stacy, can you move forward a little bit? There's been a request just to make sure that we can see you. Leave your sandwich.
You can bring your sandwich, Stacy. I'll get it for you.
So Stacy, right here, in front of you all, will be providing a
30, 15,
and 0. And there will be a loud beep when you hit 0.
Or Stacy will scream really
Don't
I'll go beep,
make
beep, beep. Thank you.
All right, so let's start this off. The first to speak will be Jim Cooper for 1 minute. Mr. Cooper.
Hello. I am Jim Cooper. A little bit about myself. I moved to Alaska in 1958. I finished high school and went to the Coast Guard Academy, where I spent 26 years in the Coast Guard. And after retirement, I moved to, my wife and I moved to Palmer, our permanent home, and we bought the Just So fabric store. And during that time, I was Palmer Citizen of the Year. I was on the city council. I was Palmer mayor. And I was also elected as the AML president. And during my 26 years at the Coast Guard and city government, I learned a lot of lessons, and I realized that how to work with a lot of different people, how to work with big budgets, and just how to get things done. When you're called in the service, you step up and you do your job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Next will be Thomas Lamb.
I'm Thomas Lamb, and I'm the Democratic primary, or Democratic nominee. You'll see myself on the ballot as a Democratic nominee, but I'm a registered nonpartisan, and I came to Alaska in 1984. I was in the Air Force. The Air Force brought me up here. I was a meteorologist for approximately 6 years, and one of the issues that's going to be important for Alaska is climate change and how it's going to affect the economy here. We're already seeing Vice President Biden talking about the issue of climate change. As far as my experience, what it gave me up here is how the lack of data and it makes it difficult to forecast, and also modeling. You have to have a lot of data for modeling. So that's one of the issues that I'll be focusing on during, or I have been. If you go to my website at lambforsenate.com, I go into detail on the issues on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. Next is Senator Shelley Hughes.
Good afternoon. I'm Shelley Hughes, and I represent District F for Friends and Family. I moved to Alaska as a teenager in the 70s. 44 years. I've been married 42 years. My husband and I raised 4 children in Alaska. I've served in the House for 4 years, and I'm finishing up my first term in the Senate. I'm known for being a consensus builder and working across party lines and getting things done, results, not rhetoric. And I am looking forward to another term because we have important work ahead. I've known also for standing against elite leadership and special interests and standing for the people. And I plan to continue that. That is what it's all about, and it's important we have the right people in office. This is a pivotal election.
Thank you, Senator. Next we'll go to Dan Mayfield. Dan.
Hi, I'm Dan Mayfield. I'm running for State Senate in District D. I'm running as a nonpartisan. I'm not running as a Republican or a Democrat. I am running by a petition ballot. I've lived in Alaska since 1962. Graduated from West High. Had my family here, and I've been married 40 years. I entered community service about 12 and a half years ago, serving as a member of the community council, ultimately the vice president of the community council. Been president of Big Lake Trails, vice president of the Chamber of Commerce in Big Lake, president of the Chamber of Commerce in Big Lake, and 6 years on the assembly. Currently serving as deputy mayor. It's not my first rodeo into the realm of politics, and I've been rather effective in really pulling together both sides of the political aisle in order to make the Matsu the best place to live, work, and play. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayfield. The next is Senator David Wilson. Senator.
Good afternoon. David Wilson, Senator for District D, as a Republican candidate running for Senate D. And I just want to thank everyone for coming out and supporting this event and the folks watching at home on Facebook. You know, I've had the pleasure to represent Senate District D since 2017, and have had the pleasure of serving in the Senate as the chair. As also, prior to serving in the Senate, I've served as the councilman for the city of Wasilla for a period of time. I've served as the Matsu Borough Board of Ethics Chair, the Transportation Advisory Board, and I believe having experience in supporting our local communities. I've been a chamber member for 7 years. Attending the chamber for 7 years. I've been a board member for 4 years. And I've never, attacked an opponent to win an election. I believe that we need to bring stability back to politics. We need to run on our principles, run on our values, and tell you who we are instead of trying to attack someone else. We can build our economy by building each other and having a strong, vibrant as we go forth to fix our time with COVID. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Oh, sorry. Yes, Stephen. Mr. Wright.
My time started? Okay. Stephen Wright. I'm also running for Senate District D in the Valley. I am a Republican write-in candidate, and as such, I am the only candidate up here who has signed the pledge, at least in District D, to follow the law as far as the distribution of the permanent fund dividend. And I'm also the only one up here who signed the pledge to eliminate the binding caucus. And I think that these are important things that we look at as we move forward here in the state of Alaska. I was, just a little bit about me, I was born on Elmendorf Air Force Base in Anchorage, Alaska, in the 60s, so we won't. Anyways, so basically my motto is 50-50 or no deal. I'm for a full permanent fund dividend, and it should be based on the traditional 5-year rolling average. And basically, if you let government get too big, as some of these legislatures have overspent $17 billion in recent years, that we can see that we need more responsible people in government.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. All right, now we'll move on to our first question. The question is, Wasilla and the Valley are the second largest population center in the state and the fastest growing area in the state. How can we increase our influence in the legislature? And the first person who will answer that question is Dan Mayfield.
Well, I really think that we need to let folks who are willing to go to Juneau and collaborate with others so that we can make our district as well as our state a better place to live. I don't think that there's any real silver bullet in that question. It's a matter of driving our economy, building our economy in this area so that we can support small businesses. And obviously, the tourism industry, I think, has potential for immense growth here. I want to support that. Also, I think the port is very important to develop the port and develop the economy here in Matsu. I think that will pay off for everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayfield. The next to answer will be Jim Cooper. Mr. Cooper, how can we increase Wasilla and the Valley's influence in the legislature?
Like you had mentioned, this area is the fastest growing area in the state and has been for a number of years. Last 5 years, we've increased students by 2,000 kids in the school. It'll be 500 every year. We need to work as a coalition to get to Juneau and make sure that we have money to support our families and to support the education system that we're going to so greatly need. And we can't eliminate the school bond debt reimbursement program and expect our schools to be in the shape that we'd like them to be in. When I was president of the Palmer Chamber, this is the best place to live, work, and play, and we need to continue to work through that. And I think that working with families and making sure our families are healthy and safe is our way to go.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. The next person will be Thomas Lamb. Mr. Lamb, how can we increase Wasilla and the Valley's influence in the legislature?
Okay, when you look at the Matsu Valley as far as the distribution of federal monies, it's been pretty low on the totem pole. $618 million was allocated to the Nome, or Fort Nome, the Fort in Nome. A lot of money has found its way out of the Matsu Valley. My position is a lot of times our federal legislators take advantage of the Matsu voters because they know it's a vote for them. And a lot of times you'll see the federal dollars aren't making it in. I used to be in the Republican Party, and I became a nonpartisan. I am on the Democratic, like I said, I'm on the Democratic ticket. But I take the position of that Juneau needs a loud voice, and Matsu needs a loud voice to go after the federal legislators to say, hey, those federal dollars need to come to the Matsu Valley.
Okay. Thank you. Next is Stephen Wright. Mr. Wright, how can we increase Wasilla and Valley's influence?
Okay, I think one of the main things is to continue to be the alternative to acreage. Because when I moved back to Alaska 11 years ago, and moved my family back here to Alaska, the military moved me back. We looked around acreage and we're like, ooh. So we came out here to the valley. One of the first things we did was we found a nice house in Southern Bay. So I think that we need to have strong businesses. We need to have the government backing off of us, even during a pandemic. We need to have, everybody's job is important. And if you look, we need to pay full dividend. The reason why I say that is you look at how long it's taken the CARES Act money to get out to people, and it's taking forever, okay? And most of the money's still locked up. So if you let the government handle things, you're going to have some real issues over time. And I think that's important, and I think we need to expedite things like the A2A railroad. It needs to go to Fort McKenzie, and that needs to be finished. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. All right. The next is Senator David.
Thank you. How can we increase our influence with the legislature? I think that you have two senior senators right now that are representing you in the legislature. You know, I've been one of the most effective legislators working with folks on both sides, getting amendments done for the valley, passing the budget, passed for our roads and infrastructures. We're still working on the local control issue to help bring businesses to the valley. And working with folks like the chamber, with the cities, with our community councils, and representing them in those needs. We brought some community safety dollars to the valley. We brought additional troopers to do some of these things. We kept our dispatch here in the valley as well, working with Mayor Pollock. And I know he didn't get 3 more years; he got 3 more weeks. But we also, voted against new taxes. We helped. We're just really a good team right now. And I would hate to, break that up, and especially with Senator Hughes getting the ATA project and championing that, serving with her on the Transportation Committee. That was a huge benefit for Matsu Valley.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Hughes, will be the final question.
To increase our leadership and clout and influence in Juneau, Everyone has till 2 a.m. tonight to fill out their census online. It's 2 a.m. because of the Hawaii time difference. As we grow here, we're going to get added representation. We're going to get another House seat and possibly a half a Senate seat at least. In order for that trend to continue, we have to have a robust economic base. And as Senator Wilson mentioned, the HUA is incredibly important. It will increase the state domestic product by about 10%. That project will. So the more that we can do to limit government and ensure the private sector is strong, the better representation we'll have. And as we continue, we have been known for working with our partners. Doesn't matter what part of the state they're in or what party they're in. Senator Wilson and I both have done that. So that's how we can increase our influence.
Thank you, Senator. We'll move on to question 2. This will be answered first by Senator David Wilson. The question, Senator, is what issues do you plan to work on that will impact businesses in Wasilla and Matsu?
Well, I believe the first one is we were just talking about this was local control issues and working on ways that we can help the state and give our liquor and licenses back to our communities. That's the only way we're going to get restaurants, and that's what the city of Wasilla and the greater Wasilla is known for, is the sort of the economic hub of the valley. Continuing on with the ATA, because that's going to help bring that rail spur all the way out to the port, help them build the port, help move goods and services, not just goods and services in terms of the oil sands it's going to bring, but it also links up rail to the lower 48 for additional opportunities for moving goods and services. Continuing to make sure we have safe roads, like the KGB project that we got done, the resurfacing, and continuing on with that, because if people feel safe on the road, safer roads, move again, goods and services, and folks that have that community aspect with it too. And continuing working with our partners, again, we're trying to lower our cost of healthcare. And that's one of the huge issues that we have with contract negotiations with a lot of companies. With that,
Thank you, Senator. The next person to answer that question will be Jim Cooper. Mr. Cooper, what do you plan to work on that will impact businesses in Wasilla and Matsu?
90% of the businesses in Alaska are small businesses. And as a successful small business owner, just so I understand what it takes to run small business. But there are some difficulties. And one of the difficulties is trying to obtain loans that are easily obtained and workable through the government. And when we tried to get a small business loan, it was more difficult than I expected. And what I would hope that the government needs to do, the state needs to do, is we need to streamline those programs and make them easier for small businesses to in fact work. 50% of the businesses that try to get started fail. And part of that is because we don't have easy programs for them to manipulate so that they can in fact be successful.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Senator Hughes, you'll have the next crack at the question. What do you plan to work on that will impact businesses in Wasilla and Matsu?
I'm going to work on reining in the budget and making sure that businesses aren't taxed, overburdened. Right now, we, in the entire nation, we have the worst ratio of our economic output in comparison to the size of our state budget. Since 2004, our state budget between then and 2013 was grown by 14.5% per year. And even since we reined back the capital budget, which I have a problem with that, it's still 4.5% growth. That is not sustainable, and we don't have the size of population and the private sector to have such an unaffordable and unsustainable budget. And so I will be focusing on that, because for businesses to thrive, we have to have a business-friendly environment, and high taxes are not business-friendly.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Lamb, you're next on that question. What would you plan to work on that will impact businesses in Wasilla and Matsu?
Two things. I take the position the PFD is on the table at this point blank. It's not, you're not going to be able to promise a full PFD that's a broken promise right at the get-go. The budget's not going to allow it. The PFD, the Kinnick Bridge, has been talked about for years and years and years and years. The issue is how you build the Kinnick Bridge. The PFD is on the table if you want that built. plain and simple. It's going to take 5 years to draw from the PFD to build the Kinnickar Bridge. You eliminate the need for the Wasilla bypass because a lot of the traffic's going to Kinnickar. And that area, McKenzie Point, that area is going to go use the bridge. So you're going to eliminate the traffic jam that's on the Parks Highway. That's one of the big issues right now.
Great, thank you. Mr. Wright, you're next. What do you plan to work on that will impact businesses in Wasilla and the Matsu?
First of all, I would honor the full statutory dividend to the people of Alaska. I know that we got to fix some things there, and it can be paid. If you look at a permanent fund, it's grown from $37 billion in recent years up to $67 billion since I've lived back in Alaska. So I mean, the funds are there. What you really have to do is you have to create I have what's called a PFD 50/50 plan. As you bring the funds in, you have to create a constitutional reserve account, just like you have a constitutional dividend reserve account. You need a constitutional dividend reserve account, just like a constitutional budget reserve account. And I think that's very important because we need to be able to keep our promises to the people of Alaska. I mean, there are a lot of things that you can look at, like tourism, deregulations, Jones Act waiver for cruise lines, so they can come without having to go to Canada first, and of course the bridge across the Port McKenzie. So there's a lot of things we can look at. We need to honor the people first by paying full dividend. Thank you.
Thank you. So A2A is very important. That program, a push for it actually, at the borough level, and I definitely want to see that come through. Grateful to the President's on the Senate permit to look at moving forward. I do believe that terminal should be at the port also, and that port expansion needs to happen. Port expansion is probably the secret to leaving our legislative taxpayer forward taxes within the borough. And since I have very little time left, I'll just hit the high points, and that is obviously road improvement in the borough need to happen. We need to support our school bond debt at the legislative level, and if, in fact, there is a next round of CARES Act money, we need to make sure that we support small businesses, because small businesses will the current package.
Thank you, Mr. Mayfield. All right, moving on to question 3. This will be taken first by Thomas Lamb. Mr. Lamb, what do you feel the state's role is in supporting the business community during the pandemic?
Say that again. I didn't catch that.
What do you feel the state's role is in supporting the business community during this pandemic?
Well, one issue is wearing the masks. It's going to take, this has been a big issue with me as far as the COVID, is that my position is, I'm critical of the Dunleavy administration for policies that don't handle the COVID. The other issue is, of course, unemployment is going to be high. So the state's going to have to ensure that unemployment benefits are going to be there for people who are unemployed, which goes back to the full PFD. It's going to be, there's just no way you can get the full PFD with the unemployment and the monies that are going to have to be put up for the unemployment. So there has to be a safety net for the people that are going to be unemployed in this community.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. Next will be Senator David Wilson. Mr. Wilson, what do you feel the state's role is in supporting the business community during this pandemic?
The state's role is helping getting the federal CARES Act money out through the pass-through as quick as fast as possible, not limiting them to shutdowns. And this is a problem that was caused by government. I'll be the first to admit that. We need to, off the data we had, we should need to go back into session. We need to go and extend the order so we can continue to get the federal funding, not continuing with the mandates, but continuing with the federal pass-through funding opportunities that we're going to miss. We also need to insure businesses on liability type of claims insurance to make sure they're not going to be liable for folks coming in and wanting to sue them because they say that they contracted COVID from their shops. So we need to provide some business protections, and that's the best thing that government can do, and to just continue to support them by not limiting their roles and shutting them down. I mean, you look at Anchorage and nationwide, 40% of businesses are going to shut down.
that's sort of the revenue structure. And so we need to do everything we can to keep our economy thriving and keep folks employed as long as possible. I mean, that's what we can do.
Thank you, Senator. Next is Jim Cooper. Mr. Cooper, what do you feel the state's role is in supporting the business community during the pandemic?
Thank you. As was said earlier, I think we need to get to the federal government and make sure the HEROES Act has been passed so that we can get the information back down to the state so that the state can pass out the CARES money a lot easier than it has been. There's a lot of money sitting on the table. It's been very difficult for individuals and small businesses to receive this money. We need to make that process easier. And we also need to, I believe, I'm strongly in favor of a mandated mask program. We are increasing every day. We're over 100. We've been over 100 cases in Alaska for the last 22 days, and that's concerning to me. That's not going to help the businesses, and so I think that we need to make sure that we have that happen and have mandates and social distancing and et cetera. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Mr. Wright, you'll be taking the question next. What do you feel the state's role is in supporting the business community during the pandemic?
Okay, the state's role is to provide, like once again, we have the CARES Act. We see how slow that money moves. Well, if you have a permanent fund dividend that's paid in full on time, what's going to happen is my plan is to protect the annual dividend from legislative overreach, to create a constitutional dividend reserve, to protect. In this dividend reserve, it'll separate the earnings on July 1st. Half of it goes in the constitutional budget reserve, half of it goes to the dividend reserve to be transferred on 1st of July every year. And in doing so, you're honoring your commitment to the people of Alaska during a rainy day. And right now we have a rainy day. And we do need to develop our natural resources. With the Constitutional Budget Reserve, it takes 75% vote of the legislature, so it doesn't go directly into any purpose spending funds, which is what we currently have within our legislature. That's why we're overspending, and we need to look at the budget closely.
Thank you. Dan Mayfield, you're next. What is the state's role in supporting the business community during the pandemic?
Yeah, thank you. I agree with Senator Wilson that we need to make sure that the Federal CARES Act money gets passed through as quickly as possible. Where I do have some difficulty with the state action was that they made some mistakes in their legislation which didn't fully support some small businesses and some nonprofits. At the borough level, when we were passing out CARES Act money, we realized that our first round of CARES distribution was not fully effective, and so we weren't able to serve the entire community like we wanted to. So we came back into session and we liberalized our wording, and we've done that 2 times now after the initial act. So I think that is certainly something that the legislature should have been considering all along. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayfield. Senator Hughes, you have the last say. What do you feel the state's role is in supporting the business community during the pandemic?
I believe that we've learned a lot because this was the first time that we kicked in our statutes, and I think one of the things we need to do as judiciary committees is go back and revisit our statutes to make sure that we're not picking winners and losers, and that there is the proper balance of the legislative branch versus the executive branch in making the decisions. I believe that we also need to make sure that our members, our congressional federal delegation, as they craft things that come down, that we are ensure that the money can go to businesses. As you know, in Anchorage, some of it went to pet projects, and it was really intended for businesses. So I think it's very important. The state's role also in providing data and monitoring things so that businesses and families can make smart decisions as far as their health and well-being. But I think that the state did a fairly good job with that, but I am concerned that there were winners and losers picked, and I'm afraid there may be lawsuits as a result of that. So I think we need to revisit those statutes.
Thank you, Senator. All right, moving on to question 4. This will go first to Dan Mayfield. So the question is, what is the greatest issue facing businesses in the greater Wasilla area, and how will you address this issue?
Well, currently, the greatest issue is obviously the pandemic. But long term, looking down the road, I think the greatest issue is our tax burden that we have on the borough and city level, not so much on the city level, but definitely on the borough level. We need to diversify our tax base here, and as I've said before, I think the port is a secret in doing that, and so I think we do all have to get behind that movement to make sure that we develop a newer commercial base that can pay, where we can transfer the residential homeowner tax base to a more commercial structure.
Thank you. Senator Hughes, you are next. What is the greatest issue facing businesses in the greater Wasilla area, and how will you address this issue?
Also thinking long term, I'm going to say healthcare costs, number one, and a prepared workforce, number two. Healthcare costs, we not only are the highest cost location in the United States of America, we are the highest cost location on the globe. So we have to figure out how to bring that down. And there are a number of ideas. Eliminating the certificate of need, Senator Wilson had that. An incentive to get loosen the free market principles. I have a bill that would do that. As far as the workforce, we have to make sure that our schools are doing their jobs. We actually have some phenomenal teachers, some excellent teachers, but we have to make sure that the dollars are going into the classroom. There was a requirement that a certain percentage always go to instruction, and that has been eliminated from statute. That's one of the things. We're spending more than $1 billion, but we have students that need remedial work after getting high school diplomas. That shouldn't be the case. You need, as businesses, a prepared workforce, and you need your healthcare costs lowered, and I'm committed to working on those.
Thank you. Mr. Wright, you're next. What is the greatest issue facing Wasilla businesses, and how will you address this issue?
Well, I think as far as, of course, we have to have a skilled workforce. I mean, the tech school models work really well. I've subbed in every school in the Valley a few years ago, and then I taught school in Southeast Alaska. You have to actually follow through with your mission. The resource development, we need to have folks invested in resource development. We need to move forward with projects that can be done reasonably and in timely manner. There's a lot of regulations that need to be removed, and of course utilizing the A2A railway and the deep water port, which is not in Anchorage, it's actually in the Valley. So we need to increase access there. We could utilize industry, bring industry in. I mean, we could have a big cargo port. Anchorage could do all passengers, and we could bring the cargo, a lot of the cargo elements over to the Valley, potentially. And so there's a lot of competition that needs to be done. But anyway, there you go. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Lamb, you're next. What is the greatest issue facing Wasilla businesses, and how will you address the issue?
Decrease in property taxes. That can be bring back the debt reimbursement, retool the education system. Years ago when I ran for school board in Anchorage, I brought up the idea of a decentralized school system. What that does, it's similar to what Edmonton's school system does, and it puts more money back into the schools itself. It's more efficient, and it needs to be implemented in the state of Alaska, especially with the 3 school districts that we have. $14,000 per student the state pays, and that's sufficient, but the money's not making it directly into the classroom. Under a decentralized school system, it'll become more efficient, and then we can bring back the debt reimbursement and lower the property taxes through that effort.
Thank you. Senator Wilson, what do you feel is the greatest issue facing businesses in Wasilla, and how would you address it?
Yeah, I think it's multi-pronged. As I agree with Senator Hughes, healthcare costs. I've been working on trying to lower healthcare costs for 4 years. We passed a couple pieces of legislation to increase access and lower the cost. Cost savings about $52 million. Energy costs is one of those other things that is burdensome for growth and development as we're trying to attract new businesses. Energy costs, we can get the Watonuma Dam on, that we believe will drop the rail belt utility rate by about 50% over a period of time. And obviously, burdensome regulations. We've been faced with a lot of growth and development out here with just different regulations. And so we have entities that love to come out to the valley because of some of the building codes, regs, and other requirements that are in Anchorage. It's a lot easier to get built in Fairbanks and the valley. So we need to continue to attract those businesses for our growth, but also making sure that the processes work efficiently and smoothly. I had a constituent out in Big Lake who had trouble trying to get a fire marshal regulations, and we were able to cut that red tape for him.
Thank you. Mr. Cooper, you're the last one to answer the question. What is the greatest issue facing the business community in Wasilla, and how will you address it?
I agree that we need to have a good education system, and the problem that I see is that with the school bond debt reimbursement program eliminated, we have, and the Matsu Borough will increase their property tax rate by 2.4 mil because of that. That is going to affect the small businesses because it comes out of their pocket, and we can't keep taking money away from the budget that are for small businesses and or $400 million from Medicaid, and we can't take away from the seniors. We can't take increase of the rates at the Pioneer Home just to try to balance the budget. We need a more pronged approach that we can actually look at things to make things better. We need income to come to the valley. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to question 5. Only 2 more left. This will go first to Stephen Wright. Mr. Wright, what issue would you address in the first session that constituents might not be aware of?
Well, I hope they'd be aware of this one. I would eliminate the binding caucus as far as procedural and budget votes, and I would ensure that I would put a bill forth that would do that, and that I think basically an issue that they're not aware of, other than maybe the procedures that happened in Juneau. We need to get away from these binding agreements that do nothing really for the people in the state of Alaska. We need to be able to fight for our rights. And one issue that I think is key is understanding how healthcare, Medicaid is, because of optional services since 2012, have increased, costing the state, or costing us basically, because the budget's part of our costing us $1 billion. So you have 26 optional services. Our dividend does not need to go to pay for optional services. We need to look at those closely.
Thank you. Senator Wilson, the question is yours next. What issue would you address in the first session that constituents might not be aware of?
I think one of the main concerns and issues that I've heard a lot for, I have 4 actually, is workers' comp. Those haven't been updated since the 80s, prices, and that needs to be renegotiated. Another one's our education formula. Right now, what they do is a point-in-time studies and count to help fund education for the following year for that year. And obviously, kids are in school other than the Matsu, which I'm glad to live in. But the education formula needs to be looked at ways that we can make that a little bit more efficient and equitable across the state. And a certificate of need. Certificate of need is a law that limits healthcare competition, and so we need more healthcare competition in our state of Alaska. We only have single providers in a lot of areas that create a monopoly. And the fourth, I really believe that we just need to look at our long-term plan to what we're going to do to solve our physical crisis and issue. And I think that's going to be it with working with colleagues in the budget.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Cooper, you're next on that question. What issue would you address in the first session that constituents might not be aware of?
In 2004, I gave a speech as president of AML that talked about the budget. The mayors passed a resolution that there was no confidence in the legislators to pass a balanced budget. 16 years later, we're still in the same problem. We also back then, Alaska was #1 in sexual assault, child abuse, alcoholism, and now teen suicide. That has not changed in the past 16 years either. There needs to be laws and regulations passed to help these people that are having these problems throughout the state. I am one for family first, and we need to protect these folks so that we can increase our family values and keep our state healthy. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lamb, what issue would you address in the first session that constituents might not be aware of?
One of the issues that didn't get any press because it was tabled was Representative Eastman submitted a bill on shared custody for the court systems, and what it did was it is a presumption of shared custody. There were 20 states in the year that he submitted that in 2000, I think it was 2016 or 18, but only one state passed it, and Kentucky passed it. There's a lot of lobbying that goes against the shared custody because usually it's lawyers that do that, but it's one of the issues that is under the radar, but it has a big importance. It's a big importance with the families. You don't want the fighting, and it costs the court system a lot of money when they engage in the custody battles that, especially here in Alaska. So it would be a piece of legislation I would look at because it's needed, and 20 states were trying to implement it, so that would be one.
Great, thank you. Mr. Mayfield.
Thank you. I think probably the most important thing that needs to be done in Juneau, and maybe not everybody is aware of my dedication to seeing this done, but we really need to develop a new fiscal plan for Alaska. Juneau is broken in regards to that. We need revenue to support our constitutionally mandated responsibilities in the state. And so we need to seek solutions in doing that. We all need to work together in doing it, and hopefully the business community will join me in seeking those solutions. I don't have a particular set of agenda other than making sure that we are able to generate revenue, first taking advantage of our natural resources, and then examining what else we have to do in order to make our state a prosperous state. We need to build our state.
Thank you. Senator Hughes, you're the final person on this question. What issue would you address in the first session that constituents might not be aware of?
Most Alaskans aren't aware that had we had an appropriate constitutional spending cap 15 years ago, the permanent fund would be twice what it is now, and we'd have plenty of revenue. The folks that think that you can solve this by taking the PFD, that would only buy us 6 years. Those that are looking at taxes, if we started that right now without doing anything else, it'd be 10 grand per household, jumping to 20, 30 grand per household in a matter of 5-10 year increments. So one of the things a lot of folks aren't aware of is that about $400 million in petroleum property taxes are only going to a couple of boroughs. I would like to see some of that money diverted to help education across the state that would help lower our fiscal gap, shrink that fiscal gap. Another thing is on our balance sheet, the funds that we have, if we were to move over some of those savings to take care of our liability with PERS TER, we could automatically reduce part of our fiscal gap by $350 million. So there are a number of solutions like that that won't affect jobs or the economy, but will reduce the gap.
Thank you, Senator. All right, we're moving on to our final question. Senator Hughes, you'll be the first to answer this one. We're getting a little bit more into details here. Do you think local organized government should have control over how many liquor licenses they have, or should it be left to the state under the current population-based statute?
Mayor Cottle would be glad to know that I believe that local control, we've been very restricted, and so will Lynn Cardin on that. That is still a fix that needs to happen, especially for an area like that, ours, that is growing, and it's been quite limiting. So I do support the local. We do have to look out for health and safety. I understand that. But I do believe that it's been very, very restrictive, and we have to understand that there's no reason why we can't have a restaurant in a city limits, especially city limits where, like the city of Wasilla, is a hub for people that are outside the city. So you can't apply some kind of random rule that might work in a place where that's not the instance. So I do believe we need local control. I do believe we still need to fix that. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Lamb, you're next on that question. Do you think local organized government should have control over how many liquor licenses they have, or should it be left to the state under current population-based statute?
I drove down the Palmer-Wasilla Highway, and there's two pot shops, one right across Kitty Corner from the south, and then there's a CBD. My issue is that the local control sometimes goes out of control. And so anyway, there should be a balance between the state and the local government, because what I'm seeing with the pot shops, it's like they're growing up all over the place, and there is no rhyme or reason with you got one here and one across the street. So I have some serious questions about that.
Thank you, sir. Dan Mayfield, you're the next to respond to that.
Very short answer. Local communities have a better ability to gauge what should be happening in their communities, so I feel that the decision should be a local decision.
Thank you, Mr. Mayfield. Mr. Cooper.
Being a former local official, as mayor of Palmer, I'm strongly in favor of moving this to the local level. You have to be able to trust your local officials that they know what's best for their community. When Fred Meyer moved into Palmer, they had to buy out another liquor store, so they had a license so they could sell liquor in their store. That's, you look anywhere else in the United States, and that's not the way it is. Local control is the way to go with this. They know what's best. They work with their communities all the time, and they're not going to be putting them, church bar. They know what they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Senator Wilson, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, all politics are local. I strongly believe in local control. We sponsored legislation to create looks over local control for liquor license, and we amended the bill currently on House members' desks to have local control.
Thank you. And Mr. Wright, your final person.
Okay, yeah, so I like to look at things in financial means, so I'll give my answers based on the finances of it. But if you look at, in general, is local control is better. We believe in our Alaska Constitution for maximum benefit of the people of Alaska. So when these special interests and whatever it is that's overburdening the people of the state of Alaska, then I think that's something that you have to look at. Is the state should allow the local communities to develop plans that work for them, but in the large scheme of things, we can't pick winners or losers, and we have to, like for example, in the financial idea, we need to allow these reverse sweeps from these state budgets to come back into the constitutional budget reserve, so that a lot of the funding for some of these programs, they might be part granted by the state, part granted locally. It just depends on the structure of how everything is funded.
Thank you. All right, that's all the prepared questions we have. Now we'll have one final minute of closing for you all to address the chamber. And the first person to go will be Thomas Lamb.
I want to thank you for having me and the opportunity to speak before you. A lot of information isn't told here. My website is landforsenate.com, but in summary, what the positions I stand on is the permanent fund is on the table, and that's for the building of the Kinnicum Bridge. The school district have to be decentralized so that more money is put into the school districts. The property taxes decrease through the debt reimbursement. What hasn't been talked about is a education endowment for the UAA using the NPRA monies that, like the Willow field that's coming on, so that we can have an endowment for UAA and 11th and 12th graders attending the tech schools at UAA, because they have diesel mechanics and other technology courses that 11th and 12th graders could utilize instead of, and just go directly into certification. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan Mayfield, you're next.
Yeah, thank you all for showing up today. Some of the things that I wasn't able to talk about today was KGB road construction. I want to make sure that that gets done. I've been working on that project for many years now, and I'll have the tenacity to make sure that that program or that construction is done. We need a good educational system. We need to strengthen our schools. We need to inflation-proof the SBA so that we can always assure good education for our kids. And we need additional troopers on the streets. And we probably need a transportation or infrastructure bond within the state so that we can build our roads and put people back to work. There certainly are no simple solutions, especially dealing with the budget that we're dealing with, but I think if you elect somebody who seeks solutions, who really works hard, who has a proven record, then I think we'll be all in a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayfield. Senator Wilson?
Thank you. Again, I'm Senator David Wilson. I'm a principled, common sense Republican, liberty-oriented conservative. We've had lots of experience working with solutions to problems, working with folks across many diverse backgrounds, businesses, different communities across the state, municipal governments. And there's a lot of work that needs to get done still with our COVID economy, with straightening out our budget, and we need to find a way to overcome these challenges. But I am hopeful. I have great optimism because Alaskans were resilient. And I am honored to ask for your vote and support for November 3rd, or if you're going to go out and early vote, or send out your absentee, or if you want more information, feel free to reach me at my webpage, davidwilsonforsenate.com. And again, I just want to thank everyone for coming out, and I'll be honored to continue to represent you with the experience that we bring forth to the greater Wasilla area.
Thank you, Senator Wilson. Senator Hughes.
Thank you for having us today. One of the things I mentioned was how we're out of ratio with our gross state product. We are about 1/5 of our gross state product is our operating budget. And other large rural states with small populations is about 1/10. We're not going to be like other ones. We're not going to get down to that, but we do need to bring it down. And that's going to be a focus, and it's going to take courage. It's going to take boldness. It's going to take people that are willing to work together to build consensus in order to do that, so that we're not overburdening Alaskans, so we don't have a mass exodus of productive people out of our state due to high taxes. One of the things I'm concerned about is increasing our capital budget. In order to do that, we have to rein in our operating budget. So I believe that I have shown that I will buck the system. I will stand strong on behalf of the people. I'm not going to cave to special interests. I'm going to have the backs of Alaskans. So I appreciate your support, AlaskansForHughes.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Wright.
So no matter how you slice the pie with the operating budget, you have to have infrastructure. And my plan to do the infrastructure using a constitutional budget reserve idea with a dividend protected reserve is one that will work for that in that way. I mean, plus you can't take on more responsibilities than you need. For example, some of us up here we're on 10 committees, and really you have to diversify that out so you're not taking on too much responsibilities. You're focused in on the things that you're supposed to do, and you get projects like KGB done. resurfacing doesn't quite cut it, and the people of my district, Big Lake, Settlers Bay, all that, we know what's going on with the roads and how they've been left to our own vices over time. So if you have 10 chairmanships, I think that's a problem. 5 chairmanships and on 10 committees, I think that's a problem.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Our last speaker will be Mr. Cooper.
Thank you. When I was in the Coast Guard, I had the opportunity to work with thousands of men and women and their families, and I had to make decisions that affected their families. I also dealt with billions of dollars in government budgeting. My master's is in governmental finance. I served my country and my community for more than 30 years. I'm ready to continue that public service to ensure that you and your family are supported and are represented in Juneau. You need someone to actually have your back, stand up and willing to vote for you and put yourself on the line. Like I said before, when called to duty, one stands up and moves forward and gets the job done. I will fight for you in Juneau. I think that you deserve better. Together we can make a difference. JimCooperForAlaska.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. And thanks to all of you, not only for giving up your time during what must be a really hectic couple of weeks, but also just for stepping forward and throwing your hat in the ring. It's not an easy time to serve at all right now, and there's not many of us that would step forward like you guys did to help us. So thank you so much. And thanks to all of you for participating. I'm going to throw it back to Jessica to give away the money and some stuff.
If you brought a door prize, you want to come back and give it away. Next week, we have What Alaska doing a presentation on the Vote No on One ballot issue. Join us next week. And the week after that, we have the State House candidates joining us for a similar format forum.
Thank you all for tuning in today. Do not forget to like and share this video. Alaskans need to learn what their candidates and the platforms they stand on and what they are willing to do for us, not themselves. And who's willing to raise taxes on us all and who isn't, and who's willing to actually work for solutions. Go to politidic.com, click that donate button. Every penny goes right back into our platform to help make sure that we can make events like this possible for you. Thanks again, and don't forget to share.